Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Ramblings from Two Meddling Kids. I'm Edward Hunt, joined by my fellow car mechanic,
Mike Cunningham.
and we are the Meddling Kids. I could have done Flesh Mechanic, I could have done Praetorian, I could have done so many better things, Warboy. What was I thinking? All right. Anyway, hi. We are the Two Meddling Kids, and we like to review movies. And the reason why I had this impressive list of things is we are reviewing Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. For those of you joining for the first time, welcome. Good to have you here. For those of you who have not come back before, don't worry. Or those of you who come back from before, great to have you. But don't worry, we won't spoil anything. And let's call it the first 5 to 10 minutes. We'll give you a spoiler-free review from 0 to 5, then some background on the movie, followed by more of a scene-by-scene, our thoughts throughout the movie. So, Mike, Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, are you ready?
I am.
All right, what'd you give it?
Honestly, so before I give the rating, let's just a disclaimer, right?
It's
I
gonna be
feel like this. Shut up.
bad.
I feel like this movie is very similar to me to Dune Part 1,
Okay.
which I have all the nice things to say about the cinematography and the performances and like the mise en scene and like the set pieces and the action sequences and all these different things. But for some reason, the story didn't intrigue me. So it
Mhm.
really brought down my experience of that film, talking about Doom Part 1.
Sure.
So that's
Yeah.
what this movie gave me. So I was like, I tried to go in a little as unbiased as I could because obviously our second movie that we reviewed was Mad Max Fury Road.
Mhm.
And like
Yeah.
we both like, that's a 5 for me, I believe.
It's a 5 for me. I love that movie. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I tried to come in as unbiased as I could with this one because I did feel like it was unnecessary. I'm not saying that all prequels are unnecessary,
Mhm.
but certain ones to me are. Just because of the fact that I think this character, Furiosa, very intriguing
Mhm.
from the Mad Max Fury Road movie. But I find that a lot of mysterious characters don't need to be defined or like questions answered, right? Because it takes
Yeah.
away from that character's mystique. I think they did it fairly well with what's his name, Darth Vader, in the prequels to Star Wars. I don't know how. Obviously, you're a bigger Star Wars fan than I am, but I felt like the prequels. However you feel about how good or bad they were, I think it was a nice introduction or understanding of what made how Darth
Mhm.
Vader became Darth. I guess I did enjoy that. So that's like a prequel for a character that added some backstory that wasn't necessarily needed, but it was cool, right? You know, it didn't really take away from that character, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's not always the case when it comes to prequels and establishing a certain character. Like I feel like Solo didn't really do any favors for Han Solo, right? It was like cool, like you're showing how he got the ship, or like the or how he met Chewie, and it was just like I could have gone without knowing these things. It's not that deep. And
Mhm.
that's what I
Mhm.
felt about this movie. It was like Furiosa was such a badass character. I didn't need like all I needed to know was like from 3 seconds from the trailer, it was just like she was kidnapped
Yeah.
from the original place. But like you knew that in Mad Max, so it was just like I didn't need any of this backstory for the most part, and I felt like it didn't really answer questions
Mhm.
that you needed to know from Mad Max Fury Road. Like I'm not too much about the spoilers. This is from Mad Max, but when she ends up killing Morton Joe
Mhm.
in the final scene of Fury Road, she goes, "Remember me." So clearly,
Yeah.
she's been through some shit with this man, right? But they
Mhm.
didn't give you their relationship in this movie, so it really didn't make sense, right? It was just like if you're gonna do a prequel, at least give us like some backstory of the relationship between the antagonist and the protagonist from the prior movie, and it
Sure.
really didn't do that. Like I said, I think I really enjoyed a lot of the action set pieces. Like it goes back to Mad Max Fury Road. It was just like when you're just battling in that desert, like being chased by hordes of
Mhm.
raiders and stuff like that. That shit was really cool. I really thought it was innovative. Like some of the ways that these raiders attacked the war rigs and stuff like
Oh
that. I
yeah.
thought that was really cool. I
Absolutely.
really enjoyed what's his name, Chris Hemsworth. Like it like we talked about this before, but it was like actors really love playing villains,
Yeah.
right? Because they literally get to go as outlandish, depending on the genre they're in or the type of movie they're in. They really get to go all out when it comes to their performance. And Chris
Mhm.
Hemsworth was like the best part of this movie, right? I think, like I
Yeah.
said, all the performances were really great, but it was like he really shined in this. And I really loved the Demented character. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think a lot of my qualms were just the fact that I didn't think this needed to be made. This literally could have, like, I feel like you got all the answers you needed for this character's backstory from the last film, and it really
Yeah.
didn't answer much. It was like you saw how she got like a knife, or
Yeah.
like some shit from the prior one, or like why she shaves her head. It was like cool. I didn't need
Mhm.
2.5 hours of this fucking movie to tell me that.
Yeah.
So for me, this is a 2.5. If I'm being honest, like all that long winded. Um, just because of the fact that I felt like it was unneeded. If I'm being
Okay.
honest, like I said, what I do like about the movie is all of the action set pieces, the performances were great, but it was just like I was literally sitting there, like I wasn't really engaged in this movie
Okay.
as much. And I guess I truly did try to go in unbiased. Maybe a bit of this review, like
Mhm.
the rating is on that unbiased part. So like I'll give it a 2.5. But for me, it
Okay.
was like I wasn't really engaged in this film. I will say though, I did watch it in 40x, another film in 40x. This one
Ah.
really wasn't at 40x. I will say, just
Uh-huh.
because like you're in a car, so like in that seat, it was kind of cool.
Okay.
Versus watch Planet of the Apes, and it was just like that one really it was too much shaking. But
Mhm.
yeah, all that to say, I think I give it a 2.5. Like I enjoyed it, but it was just like there was a lot of me questioning why are we doing why are we here? Why is
Got
it this long? Like there's more questions that I have than answers in a way and stuff like that. So it's just like I really and also like the final meeting between the antagonist and the protagonist was just like
Mhm.
a tad anticlimactic, and it was like kind of weird. But we'll get
Mhm.
to it when we get there. But yeah, 2.5 for me. Like I said, I think it's not a horrible film at all, in no way,
Yeah.
by no means. I think
Mhm.
this one has more to do with the questioning why it was made, not how it was made. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha. Sure. Wow. Okay. I will say I agree with a lot of your points. I do. I agreed with a lot of what you were saying when you were going there. The I'm like, that's just such a heavy penalty. For
Hmm.
me,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a four. Like because I still think, yeah. So getting into it, I'm giving this a four. Positives. I think cinematography, the action sequences were all really good. I think, Anya Taylor Joy as an actress was great. Chris Hemsworth, Demented was really good. But I do agree with what you were saying, Mike. Of part of this, it didn't really need to be made, and not only that, it was funny. I was talking with one of my friends about this. I was talking with Ricky, but I was talking with him about this, and it's like one of those where I'm like, okay, cool. Like I liked it, but in Mad Max Fury Road, Furiosa was arguably the most interesting character and the protagonist. Like you could say, yeah, it's Max is the protagonist because he's a titular character, but like in a lot of ways, Max is supporting Furiosa, who's driving the plot and doing everything. So she
Hmm.
was such an interesting, amazing character in Fury Road. Well, now we're getting this whole backstory of her in Furiosa, and I'm like, cool. Dementis is more interesting. Praetorian Jack, like I want so much more about Praetorian Jack to know about
Yeah.
these guys now. But then it's funny. But say they make a Praetorian Jack movie, I wouldn't be surprised if I have the same complaint about whatever the Praetorian Jack movie is.
Because it's like it's
Yeah.
Disney's doing this thing. They keep deconstructing, but it was just like,
Mhm.
at some point, we don't need this much deconstruction. Like, let us just
Yeah.
revel in what this character is.
Hmm. Like I would like some like small adventure of Praetorian Jack, just using that same kind of like, analogy.
Hmm.
But because Furiosa is 2.5 hours of a lot just kind of like shoved at you, and it feels like there's so much more it could have really, done. At times it felt slow, and at times it felt rushed. Like I would have,
Hmm.
for instance, for Furiosa, I would have loved to know more about her relationship with Praetorian Jack. I would have loved to know like a
Yeah.
little bit more here. But like, yeah, it's almost like maybe this might have been better like as two movies. Or I wonder if there's, I can't remember if George Miller, I know there's a few directors that don't believe in director cuts, and it honestly might be George Miller, might be one of them. um
With as long as this movie is, there's no way.
Well, hey, you know what? Look at Snyder, man. All right, he's got his, the regular movie, and then the Snyder cuts. It's,
True.
hey, here's like a 2.5 hour movie. No,
I
the
feel like he
Snyder
took
cut, the 4 hour
like punishments. Like,
movie. Yeah. but but yeah, like I will say, my complaints with this movie only go to, now that Furiosa gets so fleshed out, we lose some of that mystique and mystery about her, so she's not quite as engaging. Like the character
mhm.
herself, not Anya Taylor Joy. I thought it was interesting how, especially that last sequence, it got very Shakespearean all of a sudden. Like most of the movie was not, and then like the
Mhm.
monologues with the two characters, I'm just like, people don't really talk. I mean, they talk a little bit like this, but people don't fully talk like this. If this bullet goes through the soft flesh of your brain, and I'm like, all right, cool,
Yeah.
but 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 yeah, no, but still, I mean, the action sequences were great. Anya Taylor Joy. I'm just so glad that she actually cut her hair. I was worried she wasn't going to actually cut her hair because she's kind of known for like the long, beautiful hair. So the fact that she was like,
Mhm.
nope, I'm pretty sure she did. That wasn't a special effect. But yeah, the fact she actually did that, I thought was really cool. And she's just a phenomenal actress. I still love her from the menu. But Chris Hemsworth was great to see him as like, you know, a wacky kind of villain, but he was such a gray villain where you're looking at the character of Dementus, and I don't think Dementus really wants the world to be how it is, and Dementus is
Mhm.
depressed the world is how it is. But he's in this world, and man, he's going to make everyone suffer for it.
Mhm.
But like you see him, I bet before the end of the world, Dementus was like a pretty decent guy who loved his family, and then like they were taken from him, so now shit's going to hit the fan. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, no. So there were like it's a very different movie. If you call Mad Max like a nonstop, adrenaline ride, even with like the
Mhm.
soundtrack and like the yeah, like I mean like the cinematography and the soundtrack, this is more of like a long, slow, bubbling simmer of like just vengeance the entire time. But the problem with the long, slow, bubbling simmer is there are times where I'm like, how much longer is this going to bubble? Yeah, truthfully, there were a couple times watching it where I was just like, this feels a little long at times for certain scenes. But
Mhm.
as a whole, and I wonder two things that close me out. I wonder if I never saw Fury Road, though, what would I think of this? And two, I kind of still want to see it again in theaters
Mhm.
to really get an just to like kind of keep processing a little bit more. So Furiosa Mad Max Saga. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I still think it was a really good movie. I am curious, like, I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it, but like looking at it, I'm like, it has all the great makings and stuff. So I'm wondering if on another watching, if it's going to cement me as a 4 out of 5, or if
Mhm.
it's actually going to maybe drop me down a little bit. But again, there's so many amazing characters. This world that George Miller has built is awesome. It's such a
Yeah.
cool world. It's terrifying, but such a cool world. So yeah, 4 out of 5 for me. Let's get some background on this thing. They had to build a lot of cars.
Yeah, so Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, was released on May 24th, 2024. The runtime is 2 hours and 28 minutes. The budget was 168 million. I think the box office projections for the opening weekend, it's a holiday weekend, but
Hmm.
it says about 40 million. Originally, I think it was 50, but it
Okay.
dropped to 40 to 45 million. So we'll see. Once again, it's just a prediction.
Yeah.
Um, I think I mean, it has to go up against Garfield, but I feel like that's two different populations, two different audiences, so it shouldn't be that much affected. But
Well,
we'll
here's
see.
my is Garfield supposed to be a really popular movie? It's coming out this weekend. I'm cool if it is. I like Garfield. He's a good character,
It's
but
funny that you asked because I haven't heard much buzz around it, honestly.
okay.
Outside of like the original, like the announcement that it was happening and then the casting,
Okay.
really hasn't. But I don't think this generation really knows Garfield like that. Like,
Yeah.
no, not to call myself old, but it was just like I feel like you're familiar with like a sticker or like, but I feel like
Mhm.
this generation doesn't read the newspaper to know the comics or anything like that. So it's just
Yeah.
like it
This
feels like a
generation
no.
does not know what lasagna is personally. You know what I mean? That's like I don't
Under
really know.
restrictions of this generation, you might be right.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that's key to Garfield is lasagna. So,
But yeah, so the box office projection is 40 million for the opening weekend, but once in it's a 4-day weekend,
mhm.
so possibly it might get a little boost from the holiday. The Rotten Tomatoes is at 89% for critics, 91 for audience. So like people really like I said, you're all right in my I guess my review how like I really like the movie, but it really my rating dropped.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, it seems like the audience and the critics can agree that it is a really good movie.
Sure.
Um, the genre is action, adventure, sci-fi. The director is George Miller, who's done most of the Mad Max films, Lorenzo's Oil, Happy Feet, which was a very interesting one to see in his his
Hmm.
filmography.
Wait, yeah,
That's
George
like
Miller did
I
Happy
think
Feet.
Francis Ford Coppola, and then like he has all these movies, and then he just does Jack with Robin Williams.
No,
I don't know if you remember that one.
yeah, I'm just still getting so like George Miller did Happy Feet. You know, like the
Yeah.
dancing penguins.
It's a very interesting filmography to have.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Oh, also in the one, he also did Babe Pig in the City.
All right, well, I mean, that's just, that makes sense. Only George Miller could do Babe, a Pig in the City. All right, that's just
Oh yeah, that visionary director really has the eye.
yeah for Babe, a Pig in
Because
the
I was writing it down like, hold on, I literally had to do
City.
the. Yeah, so the cast is Anya Taylor Joy as Furiosa, Ayla Brown as a young Furiosa, Tom Burke as Jack. What was his? What was it like the? You know
Praetorian.
they had titles. I can't.
Yeah,
Yeah, say it
Praetorian.
again.
Praetorian. So yeah,
Preacher.
so the titles for
Okay.
the
Yeah, I didn't write down all their full like
sure.
titles in this apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth as Dementus, Latchy Home, sorry, like Home, excuse me,
Mhm.
as Immortan Joe, Daniel Weber as one of the War Boys. I think he's a kid. He was the War Boy in the back of the rig when they did the swirly thing or whatever.
Uh,
Like he's
mhm.
like I think he went viral. Because like he has a bit of like a disability or something like that, so he went
Yeah.
viral a few years ago. So
Okay.
like I just saw a bunch of stuff
Mhm.
about him being cast in this.
Yeah.
Outside of I think it's his like first movie or whatever, but we have Charlie Fisher as Mary Jo, John Howard as People Eater. I do remember him from
Mhm.
the other one. There was like it was like as a prequel, it was like showing you like I didn't watch I haven't watched Mad Max in a few years at this point.
Oh
I guess
wow.
after we reviewed it last year or the year before, whatever the fuck that was.
Okay.
Um,
It's like a
I
year and
haven't
a
really
half.
watched it again, which is
Yeah.
interesting, but I did recognize a few things, like a few of the characters and stuff like that. So that was cool. And then Nathan Jones as Rictus, and then the tagline is "Remember her."
Okay, I will. Yeah, that's for sure. I'll listen to instructions. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, like,
Whatever you need.
whoa, whatever, whatever gets us gasoline and bullets. That's whatever. Awesome. Well, cool. Thank you, Mike. Yeah. So, Mad Max Fury Road. It was a phenomenal movie. Furiosa, also very good. It's about people dealing with their anger, right? You have Max who's very mad, Furiosa who's furious, obviously, and that's just how the movie goes along. And then we just
Like
explore these.
apocalypse came and people lost their wordy words.
Yeah, that's very true. Uh,
You have Morton. I was like, what the fuck is that? So what do we do?
Except Morton, he's just pulling words. He's just like Praetorian or Morton, whatever you got to do. Everyone else is like, their vocabulary very limited, not his. And Dementus had a good vocabulary too. Cool. All right, so
Mm-hmm. Well, he
Furiosa.
had that guy. Um,
Yes.
he
The
had the
wizard
guy
man.
that was like talking to or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, like the historian. Dude, the historian was a fascinating
Yeah.
character. And like him tattooing all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff on his skin so he'd remember. But then I will say, just him, when like Dementus's like, parade of soldiers would go, and then you see the historian with his staff and white robes, like chilling on the back of a
Mm-hmm.
chariot too. I'm like, who is this wizard coming out of nowhere right now? In a good way. It was a very stark, interesting thing to see. But I think this is a good way. Furiosa. How does this movie start? Oh, actually, sorry. We're about to get into our spoiler section. That's what I'm getting towards, everybody. But before we do, a quick word from our sponsors. Hey, what's going on? I'm Edward Hunt. I'm a real estate agent on the Milan Babington team in the DMV. That's DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And we are officially the number one team at Compass in this region, which is phenomenal. And yeah, but it's so much more than just helping people buy and sell or advise on homes, which I absolutely can do. But if you need contractors, handymen, loan officers, anything like that, hey, I got you covered there too. Also, I'm Edward Hunt of Hunt Comics. I have Evil as a Weapon. I've now done two smaller con events, and it's been a blast. It's been a lot of fun to do them, and yeah, it's been really great. So, yeah, feel free to check out my website, Edward Hunt Writing. Check out the comic. I've sold a few on Amazon now as well, and more will be coming. Mike, anything from you, sir?
Just the push up challenge that I'll be doing in June. Just this company that supports men's mental health and suicide prevention. So I'll have more information. Like I already signed up, and everything. So I'll be adding the donation information, and if you want to sign up yourself and join, it's for the month of June. Like you do a certain amount of push ups to reach a goal for the end of the month. So I'll have more information about that next month. But yeah,
Great.
so that's what I'll be doing in a
Cool.
few weeks.
Awesome. Sounds good. All right. So now, if you haven't seen Furiosa yet, feel free to pause. Just make sure you come back. But let's get this thing started. How does this movie start?
Yeah, so it opens up with a bit of newsreel about the state of the world, saying that, like this basically that Australia is a radioactive wasteland. Um, and then we jump to a young Furiosa in the green place,
Mm-hmm.
trying to collect apples for her and a younger girl. We can assume maybe it's her younger sister or just a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the young girl, as Furiosa is like reaching for, actually it's a peach, I believe, right? Or
Yeah,
is it an apple? Whatever.
I'm pretty sure it's a P.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, as she's reaching for it, you hear the young girl saying, like, we've gone too far. Like, we should go back or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So you kind of immediately get this sense that Furiosa is very much like a wild child, an adventurer, kind of does her own thing, doesn't really follow the rules. And as they're out, like, collecting peaches or whatever, just fruit, um, they see raiders in the whatever glen they're in. And they're like, I guess decapitating like a dead horse or whatever, and like
Mm-hmm.
splitting up like the different meat or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and so Furiosa tells the younger girl, to like stay still, be quiet, and she goes and she starts sabotaging the different motorcycles from the raiders or whatever. But she gets caught, and when she gets caught, she starts blowing on a whistle, and we hear like a lot of the older women and men in the town that she's from, like here's the whistle, and kind of know that it's a warning that they've been kind of invaded by
Yeah.
raiders or whatever. And so the raiders capture Furiosa, and they kind of ride off, and you hear them saying like that they were killing, they killed the horse and were like bringing back its head as
Mm-hmm.
proof of of this green place,
Yeah.
or this place of abundance, as they called it, because as the news position said, that it's a radioactive wasteland. So it's like basically all dunes and sand, but
Mm-hmm.
they found this like oasis,
Yeah.
which is just rare, and they're bringing back proof of this place and the horse, and then they realize, oh, well, also we could bring back this young girl, because if you look at her, like she's very much like she's not malnourished,
Mm-hmm.
or like her eyes aren't sullen and sunken or anything like that. Like she's been properly fed throughout her entire life, which is rare. You see like the different boils and like the rough and tattered skin of these raiders. It's a very different upbringing between the two.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
All
so
the
like they capture
radioactivity.
Furiosa.
I was gonna say, yeah, like all the
Yeah,
radioactivity and everything for normal people, it's like, no, they're a little more, like multiple arms, multiple like teeth jacked up, whatever it
hmm
is. And so she is just like this. Oh, she's kind of like a perfect child, which especially for a child is even harder because there's all the radioactivity messing everything up for sure. Yeah.
yeah. And so yeah, they capture Furiosa and they ride off, and we see that her mother heard the warning or whatever. So her and another woman kind of chase after the raiders, and it was like you get this just interesting, like from the jump you get this action set piece where like the raiders are on motorcycles, her mom and this woman are on horseback or whatever,
Hmm.
and with just with a on a horse with a fucking sniper rifle going
Yeah.
ham.
Yeah.
And so they're picking off the raiders one at a time, and like you see, it's very interesting. I was like, this movie, I will give it the fact that it was like it does a lot more world building than
Mhm.
Fury Road, and it
Yeah.
was just like, all right, so like she shoots one of the raiders. They realize that, oh shit, somebody's chasing us, and
Mhm.
as they go to collect, they before they even continue running, like you see them collect the wheels of the bikes and like the gasoline tanks or whatever, the gasoline tanks, and it was like, so you see the priority here, or like the lack of resources, and
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting for them to do it that way without saying anything. You
Mhm.
see, every single time like a bike was left stranded, it was like they were scrapping it for parts before they left. You can't just
Yeah.
leave these precious resources. And I thought it was just interesting to see that without exposition, without it being explained. It was just like
Yeah.
it's just known this is the world we live in.
Yeah, they're just like pure scavengers. Like, okay, that bike has gasoline, that has a because they are trying to sabotage the one so that way she can't use it. But at the same time, it's like no, we need the gas, we need everything we can possibly get
Yeah.
from this to keep it moving. Because without this scavenger mindset, there's no way they can survive.
Yeah. So I thought that it was just like really cool. Like I like the world building without what like I guess maybe it's me just paying attention to stuff like but it's
Mhm.
not saying I'm this like nobody else caught it type of thing. But it was just like
Yeah.
it was just like very interesting to see that. It was just like subtle things, but like
Oh yeah.
it really establishes like what this world is.
Hmm.
Um
Yeah, and I think that's part of the thing, with Miller and like just good filmmaking is like it's
Mhm.
just one of those, yeah, as you said, it's subtle, it doesn't need to be explained, it's just it's what we talk, shown not said, of like
yeah.
every facet of this world is supported in this movie. Like it's like, yes, like you were reminded of the desperation when you have a random sniper bearing down on you and you still take the time to grab all materials you can possibly grab before you
Mhm.
continue. You're like, okay, no, you're in a hard time. So yeah.
And so we just get this chase through the desert. I think there was about like originally like maybe 5 or 6 raiders,
Mhm.
and her mother's like just picking them off one at a time. At one point we see Furiosa's like slung over the knee of one of the bikers or whatever, and like she sabotages the bike um and escapes for a bit, but then she gets caught. And then I think we have like 2 raiders left, and her mom is chasing them throughout the woods. They make it, sorry, throughout the desert. Um, right as they're about to make it back to the encampment, the scavenger camp or whatever, um, you see her pick off the last guy, and
Mhm.
then like the guy that's holding Furiosa. The only reason she wasn't taken down is because he got smart and latched Furiosa to his back so he couldn't get shot in the back.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
It was going to be a very difficult shot for her mother, and I thought that was like really smart. And then we see that right as he's about to, so like now all of the men that went on that scouting mission are dead,
Mhm.
right? The only guy is there's one guy left, and like right as he's about to like he gets to the camp and he's like, I only want to talk to Dementus. Like, there's no way. I'm not telling you where I was, how
Yeah.
I got there, anything like that. I need to be the one to talk to Dementus.
Mhm.
And you can see he's like using his bargaining chips. And right before he can take her to Dementus, she sabotages the bike because he has like this like bone chain across
Yeah.
his
It looked like a
across his
vertebrae, like literally like someone
yeah yeah yeah.
spun, yeah, vertebrae
Mhm.
around like him, and like that's how he's like holding himself to her, and he had it like around his body and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like so she sabotages that with the bike and it like basically kind of slits his throat.
Yeah.
But he's still alive, but he's like leaking from his
I
throat.
mean, he just
And so
ripped out a good chunk of his throat. It's pretty
yeah.
intense. Yeah.
And so they take the other, scavengers take Furiosa to Dementus and we meet him and he's like with his back to her, very like and you said the historian looked like a wizard, like on some
Yeah.
Gandalf shit. And then
Yeah.
you and you see Dementus when we meet him, he's like this and like this very Christ-like prophet figure or
Mhm.
whatever. And he turns around and like he was like, "Well, who's this?"
Mhm.
And they mentioned that she came from a place from abundance. And once again, they like you said, they inspect her, they see her teeth. I think that was the first thing they noticed, like the fact that her teeth aren't like just falling out, or like they're very healthy teeth. Her
Yeah.
skin, isn't like boiled over or anything like that. So like they question her as to where she came from, and she's just silent. And then they bring in the guy who brought her, and you see that his throat is slit and he can't talk,
Mhm.
and like so he ends up dying. So like at least we know that we see the fact that none of the guys that made it to the place of abundance can report back to where it is. She's
Mhm.
the Furiosa is the only one that can. Um, and so like initially they're like gonna torture her or something like that, but Dementus is like, no, 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 we'll like kind of we'll be nice to her, get her cleaned up or anything like that. And it was just like um, tomorrow I'll just follow the tracks
Yeah.
of the riders and I'll take you home, right?
Mhm.
Which was very interesting. I mean, it's one of those things where, like you see why he's the leader. Like he's like really playing 3D chess. He was like, we
Mhm.
torture her for what? Like there's other
Yeah.
ways to get information out of people, type of thing.
Yeah, and like it's so like Dementis, and like with going into like him being fascinating, it's Dementis is so smart and so stupid like throughout this entire movie. There are parts of him that's just it's so good and
Well,
he's so dumb.
dementia,
Yeah,
it's
it's fair. Yeah, but then but even with this, I guess like slightly skipping ahead, but not really. But just the fact that he even said, "Hey, no, we're not going to torture her." Like Furiosa as a child. I'm just going to say it now, so I don't have to like repeat it. The entire movie, never tortured until like later, but that's when he doesn't know. But he doesn't torture her as a child when he totally could. He could totally be like, "Yes, we're going to torture this child and make it then tell us how the hell to get back to this place of abundance." He never does. He's like, "Nope, I'm just going to kind of take care of the child. I would love for the child to tell me how to get there." But even
Mhm.
when shit hits the fan and they have no way to get back, he's still like, "Nope, I'm not going to torture her." Which I'm like, which I mean, obviously we know why. It's because he reminds her, his daughters and whatnot, and all that too. But it's just like interesting that he's so vicious and so brutal as we're about to see. But that's still like his line that he won't cross as a character,
Mhm.
and it feels natural because there are some times where it's like, oh, if people just don't cross the line, it's like it's just because that's too awful for a movie for anyone to cross that line.
Yeah.
No, for him, it truthfully feels like no, that's an integral part of his character while he's doing it as well.
And I think it's also you mentioned that because it was like a lot of this movie, and I think what I did appreciate about it was like it was showing that these aren't. I mean, they're clearly bad people for what they're
Mhm.
doing, but it was like in a different world, if this wasn't the world, they wouldn't be doing this type, like in a
Yeah,
way, right? So you do
100%.
see this, like, yeah, there's a line that he won't cross because of the fact that this is more out of necessity, not because I am truly an
Yeah.
evil person. This the state of the world has
Mhm.
brought me to this. There's still a bit of humanity left in me, and it was like you said, it was like very interesting. It
Yeah.
adds a layer to the entire all the characters you meet, right? It is
Yeah.
very much as like if the because we people always like doomsday preppers and people putting you in hypothetical situations like what would you do in a zombie apocalypse or
Mhm.
like the alien invasion and stuff like that. It was like a lot of it is yeah how I am right now living in the current this life of privilege is like I wouldn't know how I would act, but it was
Yeah.
like really put in that situation you see what these people are doing like I see this I would never like steal or some shit like that, but it was like
Mhm.
bro, this is zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
scavenging is what life is, maybe I would. But it was like it's
Mhm.
still on there. It's still like I'm not even Dementis was like he's not truly an irredeemable character. I mean, he
Yeah.
becomes it, but it was like there are sparks of humanity within him, right? And it was like it
Mhm.
was very interesting to see that. He's is very much I'm doing this out of necessity, not because I'm truly just a demented person. Um,
100%.
and so yeah, so they get her cleaned up, like that. They lead her off to get cleaned up, hoping to follow the tracks the next morning. But we see there's a sandstorm coming in, really basically sweeping up the tracks. And her mom is like just outside the encampment. She disguises herself in the uniform, I guess, or like the clothes of the
Mhm.
last guy that she had picked off right before he got into the encampment. And like so she sneaks in, she finds Furiosa, she takes out the two guards that were assigned to watch over her, and then she's about to take out the woman that was like assigned to watch over and take care of Furiosa. But like the woman says, I'm a mother as well. And like she kind of like pleads for her life. And her mom, and once again, it's one of those things like you would just assume as a mom or a parent, somebody kidnapped my kid. I'm killing, I'm scorching earth
Yeah.
to get them back. But it was like there's still this humanity. I don't know if she kept her alive because she was a mother or the fact that it was just like she's a woman or just like you didn't hurt my child. I realized like I have my child. She's safe. I don't need to continue to kill.
Mhm.
Um, but so for whatever reason, she leaves the woman alive. She
'Cause
escapes
she's
with Furiosa,
foolish.
but that woman,
I think she's foolish. I think that's really what we were
yeah.
going with there. But
But yeah, so that woman that she spared goes right to Dementis and tells her that Furiosa has escaped, and so like we get a chase, and it was interesting. Like her mother just rides off, and as they're like riding away, she says, "Do you hear that?" And it was like so as you just hear the horde of Dementis's his scavengers like chasing after her.
Mhm.
And so they get to this it's interesting too, like as far as like because I was thinking, I mean, I thought this is the same thing in like Fury Road, but it was just like if it's nothing but desert like for miles, it
Yeah.
was like how do you really evade capture, evade chase and shit like that? Because like you're
Yeah.
gonna run out of gasoline at some point. Like how do
Mhm.
you like? and it's interesting. Like I said, it's to see how innovative they are in this landscape. Um, and so she finds this like clearing, that's like these two rocks with like a path in between, and like so she goes to the inn and she tells Furiosa to continue riding, like she to Furiosa knows her way, and she Furiosa to continue riding. She gives her a peach pit as a seed,
Hmm.
and she's like, just continue riding. If I don't catch up with you in a day, just go on back to the green place, but like don't tell them how to get there, whatever. And so like as Furiosa rides off, her mother like stays back to kind of stop the incoming scavengers. So she takes out a few. They kind of circle around her, and she's captured. But she still, she fights
Yeah.
the good fight until she's
She
actually
takes out
captured.
like 10 people by herself. So
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, she's got that going for her.
So they capture her, and when they capture her, Furiosa kind of circles back. Which I get it, but still, she's still a
Yeah.
kid. I'm not
She's
gonna
a kid. Yeah.
judge you on. But her mother is being like crucified on this this like kind of stalk. Apparently, that's from the originals. Like I think you saw that a lot in the like Mad
Mm-hmm.
Max and Thunderdome, Beyond the Thunderdome, or whatever. I can't remember because I feel like I only watched the Road Warrior.
Okay, that's number two. Yeah, I think in number
Yeah.
one, Max's wife was probably crucified. And
Okay.
I'm blanking on. It's been a while for me as well. For like, but yeah,
Hmm.
definitely, yeah,
I feel like I've seen references of it, but it's whatever. But yeah, so
yeah.
like she's being crucified and tortured to kind of get information about the green place or whatever. And
Hmm.
then Furiosa comes back and like the Dementus realizes that that's her mother, and so he kind of forces her to watch her mother be executed, basically.
Yeah,
And this is where you see, like, I think but it happens a little bit later. And so, like, she's forced to watch her mother get crucified, and like her mother, kind of in her dying words, like, basically, like, Furiosa, don't tell them anything. And so this is
yeah.
why you get this kind of Furiosa's character not really speaking throughout the film, which
Hmm.
is interesting. I guess it's something I didn't realize, but it's also something I didn't recognize in Mad Max and Fury Road. It was just like that he really had very few lines.
Yes,
Um,
right.
it's something, like
Yeah.
I said, it's a little nuance that I didn't really realize because like it was so action packed
Hmm.
that dialogue really wasn't really necessary. I guess from the titular character,
Yeah.
so they kind of continued that with this one
Yeah,
as well.
Furiosa, Anya, she does not say a lot through a lot
Yeah.
of like she does speak, well, potentially even more than in Mad Max Fury Road, than Max did, but she doesn't speak a lot for a lot of this movie. A
Mhm.
lot of it's very silent, which is cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now basically after her mother is killed, Dementus basically adopts her, and like we see him, like we get another set piece where like they're chasing another, I guess, biker gang or whatever. They
Hmm.
capture them, and like he kind of forces them to fight to the like that because he was trying to he basically says, I was trying to bring you guys in, but like because you ran or defied me,
Yeah.
now there's only 5 bites and like 20 of you, or like 10 of 12 of you, some shit like that. So
Hmm.
like he forced that gang, biker gang, to fight to the death, and he has like the leader chained up to 5 bikes in the middle. And so
Yeah.
like we see that gang have to fight each other to the death, and then whoever wins races to a motorcycle, and then he has him just basically drive away and rip
Drawn
the
and
leader.
quartered. Yeah.
Yeah,
Drawn and quartered, the old way of execution from
yeah.
medieval times, I guess. Yeah.
And it was interesting. So once again, you get this kind of the charisma of Dementis and Chris Hemsworth of like really just loving this, or it's just like he has like a microphone, and he's like a fucking boxing announcer. The same
Hmm.
way the guy from like Monkey Man or whatever, it's just like he's just announcing this like what's happening, and he's
Yeah.
just like so charismatic, and it's like as if it's literally they're in an arena somewhere,
Yeah.
right? And they're like
Shock
so
oranges. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's so animated, but it's like so fun.
Yeah.
But what happened? Sorry, he this is where we get a bit of his background too, where it's like Furios is like in a cage along with the historian, like even the historian is kind of telling her you need to make yourself invaluable or
Hmm.
whatever, like so you have some type of purpose, otherwise this is the wasteland, you could get killed for no reason type of thing. So like if you
Yeah.
have a purpose, and the dimensions will keep you close, keep you keep you safe, basically. And so, like, so she's in a cage and she's watching all this go on. And Demented tells her that she doesn't need to watch this. She was forced to watch her mom die, but she doesn't need to watch this guy die. And
Hmm.
then he gives her this teddy bear that he keeps chained around him, and as you can tell, like he keep this teddy bear because it belonged to like one of his kids or whatever.
Hmm.
And I think this movie was interesting because it was in chapters, but since I was in the theater, I didn't get to write them down. I don't think they're that important.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
really remember. Yeah, I mean, like it's
it was
just
like
to,
five chapters,
yeah.
but it was just like I didn't really get the titles of each. But yeah,
Yeah.
so it did all this to show you basically what's happening in this wasteland.
Hmm.
I thought it was going to be him like trying to still figure out or find a green place, but he kind of drops that to the
Yeah,
wayside.
he's just like, fuck it, don't worry about it. Yeah, which is great. Going back to what I said earlier, it's like he's just like, who cares about the green place, whatever. And
See,
like,
I don't know if that's the Dementis thing or the dropping the story thing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think it was a Dementis thing because you look at like the character of Dementis is just that he's not going to torture Furiosa to try and get this
mhm.
information out of her. So maybe he's hoping that if she does become his daughter, as he wants her to, she'll just tell him, I guess. But yeah, yeah,
Like,
that's how I look
yeah,
at it.
that's interesting. I blamed it more on the writing, like outside of
Mhm.
the character. But that
Yeah.
may be true.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
anyways, like,
I will say they are kind of, they're a giant band. They're kind of constantly looking around and like they are traveling
mhm.
through. And
Yeah,
then maybe it is like he's like they're still kind of searching while scavenging. But then what's about to happen? Maybe he
yeah.
does believe that the
I think that
Citadel.
did shift his attention, but it was like
Yeah.
before that.
Hmm.
It wasn't really known because obviously her hair is grown, so like we don't know how long they've been
Yeah.
doing this.
But it's been a little bit of time for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And so, what happens? Oh, they come across a war boy, and like
Hmm.
obviously people from that have seen Mad Max Fury Road know he's a war boy. He's all in the white paint or
Hmm.
whatever. He has like he has a bunch of like silver spray paint on his mouth because clearly he like went to sacrifice himself.
Yeah.
But he ended up surviving, and there's like a fucking arrow in his
Yeah,
head.
exactly. He's got an arrow sticking out of his forehead, so he thought he was going to die. No, he's
Yeah.
still just alive. Yeah.
He tells Joe about because he lit up a flare or like or something like that in the air,
Hmm.
and so like it made Joe sorry no Dementus aware of his presence. They go find him, and he basically just tells Dementus about the Citadel, which is run by a Morton Joe, and like about I think he tells him about like Gastown and the Bullet Farm. It was like
Loose
randomly.
lips, man. Loose lips sink ships, and this man just tells
I
him
mean,
everything.
he tells me he has the arrow in his head. He
Yeah,
doesn't really know what's going on. He's just
right,
saying stuff.
right.
He's like,
He thinks he
I
might
never.
be dead. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so like now that Dementus is aware of the Citadel, he wants to conquer that as well. And like
Hmm.
so they're on their way, and like really quickly before this happens, we get Furiosa because she was excuse me, I'm so sorry.
Hmm.
She was talking with the historian, and she takes his I guess his like this needle and ink and
Hmm.
starts tattooing like basically the path back to the green place on her left arm, I believe.
Yeah.
Um,
Wait. Is it her right? Yeah, maybe it's
I,
her
think,
right arm. Yeah, yeah.
I thought it was her left hand was like hanging up.
Well, it depends on whichever one. I don't remember. I think maybe it is her
Anyway,
left. Yeah.
she starts
Anyway.
tattooing. She starts tattooing the path home on her arm,
Yeah.
and then the next day they arrive at the Citadel, and like we're familiar with this. It was just like you have a bunch of people like at the bottom of this like mountain, I guess, or
Hmm.
whatever, and a Morton Joe and his horde is up at the top, and
Yeah.
like
It,
randomly he'll release her.
Sorry, it's her left. I verified. Yeah, it's her
Okay.
left arm, which makes a lot more sense because blah blah blah. Okay, yes, it's her left.
Yeah, so they arrive at the Citadel, and like you see, like a bunch of like these emaciated people, like they're just like in hovels in the dirt.
Yeah.
And
Oh
Morton
man.
Joe's like, yeah,
So that was something like you see these people in the first one, in like Fury
yeah,
Road, but like
mhm,
you see what's in these people's holes now as they're just
yeah.
like,
It was
oh, it's so
Jesus.
good but so bad.
Yeah, it's interesting too because it does. So I will say that did add
Hmm.
more context to like when he's giving them water and they're truly like. I mean, granted, it is the desert, so it's
Yeah.
like any amount of water you can get, but it was just like it adds context to why they're like literally worshiping
Mhm.
the water giver type of thing, like this
Yeah.
deity. The fact that like they're living in hovels, and it
Yeah.
is terrifying what's going on in
And
those
they're
holes.
eating people. They're living in
Yeah,
hovels and eating dead bodies to survive.
yeah,
So it's like, oh my god! And yet that old woman was terrifying to see. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like, could you
I
imagine?
forgot
Oh,
there are a bit of horror elements like
oh yeah.
in these movies. Like
Mhm.
it's rare. It's more about the like the gore and violence. Not I guess not gory violence, but it was like there's a
Yeah.
bit of violence. But it
Mhm,
was like I
mhm.
forgot there are horror elements
Yeah.
to these this
That's just
franchise.
how terrifying all this shit
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
And so at the base of the citadel, basically what's his name? Dementors give this speech about like I want because he sees how these people are living and he's just like I want you to bring down your leaders, I'll kill them, and then like I'll become your leader basically,
Mhm.
and you won't have to live like this. And
Yeah.
so he just he's giving a speech up to the citadel. Morton Joe comes out and he's with the people leader and like his two sons Rictus and the other one.
Mhm. Yeah.
And basically he gives a Joe gives a demonstration because he's like, you think these people will leave me,
Yeah.
right? And so he gives a demonstration and he tells Joe tells what's his name, Dementors to pick one of his hordes,
Yeah.
like
I
to
ran
as a champion or
Yeah.
whatever. And so the guy picks one. He picks a guy and he like sprays his sprays his mouth with the spray paint or whatever. He goes off to the side and grabs two like thunder sticks, sorry,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just and like sacrifices himself to kill like a few of what's the Dementors' men. And he basically
Yeah.
says, "I am a god to these people. They'll all of these men that you see will die for me. So who do
Mhm.
you want to do? What's up?" Like
Yeah, exactly. And they're just all just blowing themselves up for this. That's nuts.
there's
Yeah.
like it's interesting. So like you see them kind of swinging down, trying to like the war boys like swinging down, trying to capture some of the guys on the bikes and the cars. They're throwing down thunder sticks,
Mhm.
and Furiosa is like almost captured by the people in the holes, but like she's saved by Dementus, and like they ride off. And what I will say is, I really loved talking about like we said the action sequences. The actually, I feel like my god damn it, we're talking about it, my rating is gonna go up,
Yeah.
but because I
All right.
forgot about I really love the designs of the different vehicles. Like I
Mhm.
really love Dementus's like chariot that he had. It was like three motorcycles molded to one, and then he's like in a chariot. I thought that
Yeah.
was like really cool. Like it was,
Absolutely.
I think they got really innovative with like this world and
Mhm.
like the different vehicles and like how they use them. But so he rides off, and because the war boy had told him about the three like the safety post of the wasteland being the Citadel, Gastown, and the
Mhm.
Bullet they stake out Gastown for a few days, and then um, they raid one of the war rigs as it's leaving Gastown,
Mhm.
um, and then they come up with like this Trojan horse plan to like take Gastown. So like what's his name? Dementus has a few of his men dress up as war boys, and they play out this scene where like the excuse me the war rig is returning, and it's being chased by raiders. So like they want them to like open the gate, and
Yeah.
then what's his name? Dementus sees that like this kind of ruse isn't working, and so he just starts killing the men that are disguised as war boys. And you
Yeah.
see the general that had enlisted these men are like, "What the? How dare you? Like, those are
Yeah.
my men. What are you doing?"
Well, you can see, and this is a great way to show, like, even in Dementus's, like, horde that he has, there's different
Hmm.
factions, and even like the one guy was like, "No, I'm not going to listen to you. I only listen to the octopus."
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
you see that there's dissension in the ranks already.
yeah.
So this is kind of like the fact he's like, "Well, I got to kill him to get in there," and then yeah.
And that's what's interesting too, like this disparity between Morton Joe and Dementus, where he's
Hmm.
just like you said, like he's a leader, but it's like he definitely has different like basically different biker gangs
Yeah.
underneath him, but like there is no true leadership for the most
Yeah.
part.
Versus like the Morton Joe
Morton
has
Joe,
like a cult following him,
which
basically. Yeah.
once again I think one of the bigger gripes I have with this movie is the fact that, like I said, in Mad Max Fury Road, Furiosa kills Morton Joe, and she
Mhm.
says, "Remember me,"
Yeah.
right? So
Oh,
clearly there is a history between these two
well,
characters.
remember, I will say, remember though, in Morton Joe's cult, everyone, all the war boys say, "Remember me" before they die. So remember me when they
Yeah,
go to,
yeah. But
thing.
I
I
think
think it's that.
no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah,
But I think the way that she said it, it was like as if they had a history, right? At least how I saw it,
fair.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I
It's,
looked at it more of like she was just saying what everyone else in the cult said before
no,
they
you're
died.
totally right. I did forget about that. So thank you for
Yeah.
like reminding
No,
me.
for sure.
But it's like in my mind, she was saying that because they have a history. So it's
Hmm.
very interesting that you didn't get to see Joe's ascension to like this deity or
Yeah.
something like that. Like they really focus on a third or like an
Mhm.
external antagonist that
Yeah.
really doesn't matter. Once again, it's the plight of the prequel.
Hmm.
We know what's going to happen, so like you can't really shock us that much.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like for the most part, like there's a little bit of anticipation, but not that much. I know this person's going to survive. They're in the original, so it's
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
there's not a lot of there's not a lot of shock factor there, or like that
Yeah,
you can do.
for
And
sure.
like so, it was interesting that they didn't like to me like it was like this third party character. We know that it doesn't exist in the lore before this film, so
Hmm.
he really doesn't matter. Even though he made himself like a part of like one of the best characters throughout the entire fucking franchise. But
Yeah.
still, it's like a character we know that isn't going to survive. So it was interesting that they didn't focus Furiosa's story on Joe because like it didn't seem like Immortan Joe and Mad Max and Fury Road had any prior dealings or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So like clearly
Excuse me. Yeah.
this antagonist is like it's more like you said, Mad Max was more of a Furiosa story than it was a Mad Max story.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
like it was clearly Furiosa versus Joe. So it's
Hmm.
interesting that they didn't focus on the tension between them in this film, in this prequel. But whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes. So back to Dementus. He stages this ruse to get into Gastown. It works. He kills the decoys. They open the gates, and then like they had a few of his men like um, hiding in the war rig. So once they gets in, they kind of take over Gastown. They capture the leader, and then
Hmm.
they bring that leader to negotiate with Immortan Joe, and basically saying like, we want X amount of money. I'm gonna
Yeah.
run Gastown because clearly you can. I was able to raid it,
Hmm.
and so you see like the tension in this negotiation. Morton Joe's brother, I guess, gets killed. He's the one that was running Gastown.
Yeah. I guess that was his brother. Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
he
Yeah.
mentioned it right briefly. So he
Okay.
gets killed
Yeah.
'cause he's in this fucking saw contraption that
Yeah.
Dementus has.
Right. Yeah.
That's like chained up to his nipples or whatever.
Yeah. Right. Which is just ridiculous. Of like, what the hell is going on here? Because why
Yeah,
not?
so
Yeah.
in the negotiations, it was like Joe's like, I won't give you double, but I'll give you a certain percentage of everything. And then he sees Furiosa, and once again, this is a child with good teeth, good skin, like not
Mhm.
malnourished and anything like that. So clearly, uh, Joe wants her, like when she comes of age, to be one of his wives because
Yeah.
his biggest thing is having a healthy child,
Hmm.
to kind of, I guess, continue his legacy.
Well, when you got
And
Scrotus and Rictus, you're kind of like, all right, we can do better than this, can we? I mean, come on. Yeah.
so he bargains for Furiosa and then the people doctor. What was his name?
The purple
The
people.
doctor.
Oh, the organic mechanic.
David, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
It was his
yeah.
name. I didn't want to
Literally
fuck
one
it
of
up.
my like. I will say, I did say like that's like from the first one. He's just like the fact that he's an organic mechanic. I find
Yeah.
him fascinating. So the fact that he was actually originally rolling with Dementus versus
Mhm.
Immortan Joe, I liked, and I was like, that was really cool.
As I
Even
was
though,
saying, it was one of those things where, like I said, I haven't seen Mac. I mean, I love the movie, my
yeah,
memory, but it was like
100%.
I haven't seen it in a year and some change. But it was like I was like, I know that guy. I
Yeah,
know him. Cool, good story.
yeah,
Yeah, so he bargains for the organic mechanic and Furiosa. What's his name? Dementus agrees, and now he goes off to run Gastown. Um, that night, we see because Rictus kind of has his eye on Furiosa, so like
mhm,
she gets taken to where like Morton Joe's wives are,
yeah,
and like so she plans a ruse, like so she shaves her head, makes a makeshift wig. Rictus comes that night to like capture her or whatever. And so like she's able to like escape him because like she cut off
yeah.
her hair,
Well, I mean,
and
Rictus
then
is definitely going to do the not nice, the very not
yeah,
nice
yeah,
word. Yeah, it's just
mhm,
like what the fuck. Which you just like. it like makes sense, I guess, for well, like from a plot perspective, for how she like escapes and gets out of this, and it really just makes you hate Rictus even more as a character, and you're all right, like what that person, like the exact
Yeah.
opposite of like Dementus has his lines and stuff that he won't cross or won't do. Rictus, who not in defense of Rictus, but Rictus is also mentally challenged, and like
Yeah,
he
yeah,
still
yeah.
has like, I think he has like the brain of a child. Basically, he has like the
Very
strength
much.
of
Yeah.
like 7 grown men and the brain of a child. Basically,
Mhm.
is like the whole lore behind him. But it's just like, you cocksucker, like for lack of like, yeah.
And so she escapes him, and then like for the next X amount of years, like she is disguised as a mute boy.
Mhm.
Like so she works throughout the Citadel, like on different jobs. Like we see a cool set piece where like they're trying to bring up one of the trucks like through or with wires and stuff like that, but one of the wires broke. So
Mhm.
she's selected because she's like the smallest to like reattach the cable before the truck drops, and like so she does that successfully, and so she gets a higher rank in the excuse me, she gets a higher rank within the Immortan Joe's like horde,
Yeah.
and then say it again. Sorry.
I was just saying, yeah, like, I can't remember what it was called, but yeah, like the doorman or dogman or something like that. And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
everyone
I
thinks
think.
she's a boy. Yeah. Yeah,
And
because
then a few years later, she's now like a teenager or whatever. Now, so finally, we get Anya Taylor Joy. Like this has all been a young Furiosa. So finally, like a few years later, she's working on like a war rig, and they're coming up with a new rig that can sustain attacks from raiders when they're making trips to Gastown and the Bullet Farm. So she's working on a war rig. You find out that she's like she's mute and like she doesn't talk or whatever to disguise herself as a guy.
yeah.
Um, and then like so as the war rig's being built, she's helping, but you see her like she's stashing something underneath the rig one night or
Hmm.
whatever. We see it's like potatoes or some shit like that, and then like
Yeah.
the next day or whenever it's making its next run, this is where we meet Jack. What was his
Mhm.
title?
Praetorian Jack.
Praetorian Jack.
Yeah.
He's basically the imperator before her or whatever.
Hmm.
And like so he's had so many successful runs. It was funny how they did it. It's just like you have some of the war boys or whatever. It was like that's him. Like he's
Yeah.
never never had a not successful run. And it was just like
Yeah.
like LeBron James walked past and it was like
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
that's LeBron James. He has 4 NBA titles. It's like yeah, we know.
Yeah.
This is very funny. It was like I see him on a fucking baseball card.
Yeah. Yeah, all his stats and everything right there. They're trading it.
Yeah. Yeah, so the next run, uh, they end up getting attacked by some raiders, and at some point, and this is why I said it was so cool. So like these raiders, like this band of raiders, use like aerial tactics to get the upper hand. So it's like you
Mhm.
see them, they have like fucking kites at one point, and
Yeah.
then like kind of like they got like little fans on their backs and stuff like that to like get the aerial advantage over the war rig and stuff like that. And it was just like so cool to see them using
Mhm.
these tactics to attack.
Yeah.
And it's like this really intense this action scene like with this new war rig. And we see at one point like something happens with one of the engines, so like the Jack's second or whatever
Mhm.
goes to like fix it, and he gets like hit with something underneath the truck, and we see that Furiosa is there with like a motorbike, and like
Yeah.
all her supplies get hit. So like you see like she was using this attempt to escape, um, but during the escape, like the second sees her, and like he was like doing something with a tube to fix the engine. So like he dies,
Which
and the right is yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, which is so cool because, like, yeah, she's hiding there away, and she's like, the bike goes, and it's such a great sequence. But yeah, as he's dying, as he's trying to fix it, he realizes he's about to die, so he's just like, "Hey, you need to now fix this damn thing. Take the tube instead of me." And I was like,
Yeah.
to have like the wherewithal of to do all that, like, I like that second in command a lot for just all of this
Mhm.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it was also this once again this world building thing, but it was just like it was showing how like obviously the war boys are very much dedicated to Joe, but
Yeah.
there's other factions in at the
Mhm.
Citadel. It was like so even when like he see that she's trying to escape, and he's like, cool. Like, I don't give a fuck. I'm not gonna tell anybody.
Yeah,
It was just like,
exactly.
but as you do that, like, take
Mm.
this to help fix the truck. And
Yeah.
so like she takes the tube, ties it off, fixes the engine, and then kind of decides to continue helping with the to fight off the raiders.
Hmm.
And so like she's like kind of helping Jack. Like there was like something else that happens in the front of the truck. She fixes that, and then she's shooting down some of the aerial attackers. And then at one point they use the secret weapon, and this
Yeah.
is basically like a whirly contraption at the end of at the back of the rig with
Hmm.
like spikes on a ball. So it's like basically creates this like a fan with like spikes on it
Yeah.
to thwart any attackers from the back. And it's sad because of the fact that like there's a little guy, and that's the guy we were talking about, like Daniel Weber,
Oh
the guy
yeah.
that went viral. Um, he knows that if he uses it, he'll die because he's just sitting in the back of this like this ball that's just gonna to like tumble him around like a washing machine. Like so,
Hmm.
like they use the contraption, and then like she opens it up, and he's dead, and he has like the silver spray on his mouth because like
Yeah.
he knew that he was gonna die.
Hmm.
And then like so after they're able to successfully fight off the raiders, and it's like once again I'm skipping past because this is getting a
Yeah.
little long. It was
Of
like
course.
it's very much a really cool action scene. Like I can't like state that too
Yeah.
much. Like I think that was the best parts of Fury Road. It was like when they were on the road being raided and being
Oh yeah.
chased. And like
Definitely.
so, this movie continued with that. I mean, some of the CGI is very apparent in this one. Like I think most of this franchise has been known for practical effects.
Hmm.
So it's like the CGI when it's there is noticeable, but it doesn't take you truly out of it, out of the film.
Yeah, and I think George Miller was trying to have a better set than the last one, the Mad Max Fury
Yeah,
Road, with like the legendary like difficult set of like it's
yeah,
crazy how difficult it was. So let's take it a little easier on some of our
yeah.
actors.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I didn't really, I
no,
didn't
for
want to lean
sure.
into it. I just wanted to
Yeah,
let
no,
you know. But yeah. So after um, they survived the attack, so it was only Joe and Furiosa Jack and Furiosa that survived the attack. And then once the attack is over, she takes a gun that he had given her. This
mhm.
fucking like it's like a brass knuckle with a knife and a gun on
Yeah,
it or whatever.
hmm,
And she tells him to like pull over there so she can escape. So she continue her escape, and he like literally like hits the brake super hard, and like she it kicks her out of the rig. It was
yeah,
like if you want to escape, go ahead. Like I'm not gonna stop. And like I said, it
yeah,
was very interesting to see. Like you would assume that like when in Fury Road when she tried to escape, they tried to capture her. Like
mm,
no one escapes, no one leaves. But seeing like these different characters be like, I don't give a fuck. Like your staying doesn't
yeah,
like impede me. So do your thing. It's
yeah,
like very interesting to see. But yeah, so like he just kicks her out of the truck and like just drives off. He was like, if you want to escape, go ahead, leave. And then like so he drives off and like she's like kind of limping away because now she's just stranded in the desert. And
mhm.
like so he instead of backing the truck up, he parks it and walks back and is like, um, if you want to escape, I can help you. Like I can teach you, teach you how to escape, Joe's clutches or whatever.
Yeah,
And like, so she reluctantly agrees. And then we get like a bit of a montage of her, like, now she's his second or whatever,
hmm,
helping him on the different runs. Um,
yeah. He's teaching her everything. She like the reason why she's so good as she is because he taught her basically
yeah.
how to do all the stuff too. Yeah,
And then, like, while this is happening, we see that there's meetings with, what's his name? Morton Joe and like his counsel, his sons, Rictus, and the other one, and like People Eater. They basically, and the guy from the Bullet Farm basically complaining that because of Dementus and like the infighting within his horde,
hmm,
that Gastown is basically like it's not going well. Like he's not running
yeah,
it well, and he
hmm,
refuses to accept any responsibility for this. He's like blaming everybody else except for the fact that like he just can't run. He
yeah.
can't run gas
He's
now.
just not good at it. Yeah,
Yeah, and so we get a glimpse of this because Jack and Furiosa take the war rig to Gastown, and like you just see like a few people at Gastown trying to do their job, like resupplying with gas or whatever. But
hmm,
then like a lot of them are like trying to like rob the truck or whatever. It was just like, and even Dementus can't keep them back. Or he was just like, and he calls for a meeting with the council in like a few days or whatever. He
hmm,
was like, we need to talk about this because this is getting out of hand. And like fucking Furiosa and Jack and like some of the war boys are killed on their way out of there because you can just
yeah,
see like just the chaos that is
hmm,
Gastown.
yeah,
And so they return. They tell. Joe like what happened at Gastown, and they're like, basically they're like, okay, we need to take Gastown then. Like fuck a war meeting.
Mhm.
So he sends them off to the bullet farm to get all of the ammunition they can get, so they can take Gastown, from Dementus.
Yeah.
And so this is where we get that night, like we get a bit of the relationship between Jack and Furiosa. So it kind of went from like mentor mentee to like I guess possibly something more romantic, but we don't. It's not
Yeah.
really established, but that's fine. It's
Yeah.
not that deep. I think
Yeah.
these
It
stories
could.
really don't lean on a romantic entanglement too much.
Yeah, which is good. But they do have the same thing that from the place of abundance, that like friends and everyone, like the whole forehead to forehead, and like that
Hmm.
could be, yeah, it can be completely platonic. It might not be completely platonic, depending on this. But like, it's
Yeah.
just we do forehead to forehead as a way to like show respect and adoration and love. It's just different kinds of
I
love.
think that's interesting you said that because it's like that's not something that the Wasteland has.
Hmm.
No,
Yeah,
Dementis keep saying there is no such thing as hope, but it was like there is no such thing as like intimacy outside of like aggression
yeah,
in the wasteland, because I think that's a seen as weakness,
yeah.
right? Like, even that like they're procreating and stuff like that, but they're reproducing, but it's like that's out of necessity, not
Hmm.
because of the fact that, I don't think they're in any like true relationships or anything like that. There's nothing like that in this world. So like, yeah, she brought that from that practice from the Green Place to
Hmm.
the Citadel between her and Jack.
Yeah.
I guess it's interesting because I saw it in the promotional stuff, and obviously in the beginning of the movie, you see her mother do it with the lady before she
Hmm.
continues the chase. But I guess I didn't register it as something very specific to the Green Place.
I'm
Um,
assuming it is because we never see it anywhere else. We only
yeah,
saw it with the
no,
green.
you're totally right. That's
Yeah.
also I'm glad you peeped it. And so the next day, they make the trip to the bullet farm, and when they get in there, it's like kind of like just barren.
Yeah.
And then they realize that it's an ambush. Oh no! So first, actually, what happens on the way right before they get into the bullet farm? I guess either I couldn't tell, and you can let me know. It was like I couldn't tell. Like so basically he tells Furiosa to get out of the truck.
Hmm.
Like actually, no, she was driving. He tells her to get out of the truck and drive like the trailer car, which
Yeah.
has two bikes on it or whatever.
Hmm.
And then he basically just switches up the roster, has her drive the trailer car with the two bikes,
Hmm.
and then has like one of the other war boys drive the truck
Yeah.
um, with him, and like just switches everything up. And I thought it was like, oh, they're gonna escape. They're to try to escape after this. But do you think it was like he was trying to escape, or he kind of had a bad feeling?
No, I think they were trying to escape. I think what
Okay.
it felt like to me was they were going and he was prepping because he even told the war boy, he's like, hey, you can drive the whole way back. He even kind of told the war boy that,
Yeah.
so he's like, do it. So I think, and that's why he put two bikes. Because at first I was like, is he telling Furiosa to escape without him?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
since there were two bikes, I was like, no, 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 I'm pretty sure it is. They're going to escape together, is what kind of
Okay.
how I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought too. But it was like I said, like having that an external or another person's perspective.
No, for sure.
Um, But yeah, so they get to I said all to say was like they switched up the roster. So when they get into the bullet farm,
Hmm.
realize that it's an ambush because like the truck gets shot up and Jack is able to like duck down, but like the driver who's just a random war boy, he gets shot, and Furiosa is able to back out before the gates closed.
Hmm.
So she's outside of the bullet farm. Jack and a few of the other war boys, all the other war boys are still in there. They get ambushed. Jack is able to like shoot his way and kind of help Furiosa and like not get shot.
Hmm.
And then he kind of just gives her a look like escape, like go ahead, like I can't get out of here. So he takes the truck and like kind of continues through the bullet farm and like taking out some of the other the attackers. And basically we see that I think what's his name? Dementis knew that they were going to try to ambush him or like try to take, overtake him. So like he took over the bullet farm and then like was waiting for the rig to come so that he could use the war rig against Immortan Joe in the
Hmm.
Citadel. And so another cool action set piece where like the war rig is just riding
Yeah.
through the bullet farm, being attacked, like it's taking out as much as it can, and then we see that Furiosa could have driven off because
Hmm.
obviously, what's the name? Jack wasn't getting out of there, but
Yeah.
like she comes back. and like she's using a sniper rifle, like she's kind of helping him along the way. In the sniper rifle, she also sees a fucking Demented, and
Yeah.
clearly she's had this um been seeking this revenge against him since he killed her mother. So like she tries to take him out, but
Yeah.
like he realizes it, and it was like this is what we keep saying. It was like this was very much Demented's movie, like
Oh
in the
yeah.
same way that Fury Road was very much a Furiosa movie. Like Demented's was like chewing the scenery and like really loving, like, even in the face of death, like he still has this sense of one. He's very intelligent. And then just having fun with it. It was very much like a fucking like a Spartan soldier was just like the only like the death is like a what is it the an honorable death type of thing. It was just like
Okay.
I
Yeah.
can only
Yeah.
die in the battlefield.
Yeah.
Um, and so like he's able to he, he's able to take out Furiosa or whatever for a bit, like with a rocket launcher. But also ultimately they're able to like Furiosa is able to rescue Jack, and they're able to escape. Um, and like so, as they're driving off, she tells him, and she shows him like the tattoo of like the map back to the green place, and she's like, "We'll drive east for like 3 days, and then like we'll use the bikes to go the rest of the way," type of thing. Like she knows exactly how to get home. And
Yeah.
then, but back at the bullet farm, what's his name? Demented is able like to break down the gate or whatever, and like to give chase. And it was like this cool ass chasing. It was like initially they don't even know they're being like followed.
Yeah.
And then like once again you see the intelligence of Demented where he's just like, all right, I can cut them off here and like or whatever. So like he's able to they do their best. Like Furiosa does her best to try to escape them, but ultimately the car gets flipped over.
Yeah.
Was the Demented horde catches up with them. He chains so at one point when in the chase, Furiosa's left arm was outside of the car, and
Yeah.
like it gets like pressed between the wheel of the other car and like the hood of her car, and like it just gets her arm gets mangled, and that's the same arm that has the tattoo of the map back to the green place. And so when the car gets flipped, he takes them out because he sees that they're both still alive. He chains what's his name Jack up to one of like another motorcycle and just basically has him like tortured to death, like just
Yeah.
being dragged behind a motorcycle for like hours, it seems.
Yeah, it's got to be hours. It looks like he ate like mushrooms or something from like the wizard. It looked like the wizard gave him, I thought, psychedelic mushrooms, and then he sat there for hours going on this trip while like the dude got pulled. Jack just got tortured to death, and then Furiosa's hanging up by her left crushed arm.
Yeah,
from the back.
Yeah,
of the truck.
that's what's even like he makes it a thing where it's just like the guy goes to chain her up behind his rig or whatever. He was like, no, her other arm, because he saw that it got mangled, so he really wanted to fuck with her.
Yep. Yeah, and this was a thing too. Is like you look at that. Demented doesn't realize who Furiosa is. He has no idea. But like what he does see is that like Jack and Furiosa have like a tender moment, and then and Demented is like, no, that's not what we do here. That's not.
No, he realizes the fact that she came back for him.
Yes.
And she was like, he was like, so clearly,
No, so the fact that she came back, and then when they have like the foreheads touching together, he's like, "There's no hope in the wasteland," and he's like freaking out, and because he's so angry that like people have the audacity to have hope in this wasteland when he has given up hope. So he's like, "You're making me become Dark Demented." So then, literally, because he saw people caring about each other and having hope in the wasteland, he was like, well, now I have to torture you to death because you fucking forced my hand. And you're like, oh my God, you did, sir. Like, yeah, crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So as Jack is being tortured to death, what's her name? Furiosa is pinned up, and like it literally just happens for hours. And then finally he just says, stop. Torture, because Jack's been dead for hours, and then he goes to basically do the same thing to Furiosa, but we see that she's escaped. She's cut off her left arm, so it's like still hanging there or whatever, and like she just makes her way back to the Citadel.
And it was like one thing real quick with this movie. How the fuck did she get out of that situation? You have motor. I mean, you could say the dirt. You could say like the dirt and sand made it so like people couldn't see. It was too cloudy, I guess. But like how?
The answer is off screen.
Yeah, the answer is off screen like shit here. Yeah, that's the of the entire movie. Like you have people flying and doing. I'm like, yeah, that's realistic. This is the one thing where I'm like, no, there's no way. But yeah,
But yeah, so she escapes, like she cuts her arm off, which is her once again the last her last connection to the green place. She
Mhm.
doesn't know where it is.
Yeah.
And so she makes her way back to the Citadel, but like she's kind of obviously she's losing blood because she lost her arm, and like so now we get another peek of like the hidey holes basically underneath the Citadel, and
Yeah.
she just wakes up to like dangling fucking limbs and shit like that,
Hmm.
and like the lady's like, oh, well, I'll get that cooked up. I was like, oh my god, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ,
Right. Yeah. There's like maggots and flies on her stump of
yeah.
her arm and everything too. Yeah.
And so like so she escapes the hole or whatever, and like goes up to because they had dropped the lift or whatever from the
Mhm.
Citadel. And she says, "I'm Furiosa" or whatever. So like
Yeah.
they take her to a Morton Joe who's in his war room, basically like getting ready. Well, one, he was waiting for munitions that never came back. So, but like, they're getting ready because they see that gas town's on fire, and they're
Hmm.
going to go attack it. And Furiosa comes in and is like, he's not at Gastown. He took the bullet farm. He blew and he incinerated Gastown as a ruse to get you to leave the Citadel because he wants to take over the Citadel.
Hmm.
And so like Joe takes her advice and he's like, we're gonna make it look like we're going to Gastown. So only about 5 cars roll out, and they just drum up a bunch of smoke, so it makes it seem like the entire horde is going over.
Yeah.
And then you see that Demented is kind of hiding out a
Mhm.
few miles away from the Citadel. And he was like, "Oh, they're such fucking stooges. Like, how could they take that
Yeah.
ruse?" And so
Yeah.
like he goes to attack them, not realizing that they're still at the Citadel. And so like they just battle basically Dementis' horde and the Citadel just battle for like 40 days. And
Yeah.
in this time, Furiosa is, recovering.
Hmm.
Um, she uh she gets her like mechanical arm, like she like takes it from like an engine or something like that, or like some car parts, and
Yeah.
fixes a mechanical arm. Still don't know how it works,
Yeah. But
but
no idea. Maybe she
fine.
can
I'm
move
I'm
it.
gonna let
Like,
it.
all right. Yeah.
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 And then she asked for a car or whatever because all the cars are being used in the war.
Hmm.
But this one guy has like a really beaten up car or whatever that doesn't even have all the wheels, but they salvage what they can. She drives up to the to like the war front,
Hmm.
and like they use the car that she has like to salvage parts. And so because one of what's his name, Joe's sons, is like, I want to go out there. I want to just find, because they realize they basically killed most of Dementis' horde. There's not many left, so he wants to go out and find Dementis himself. But
Hmm.
like his brother and his father are like, no, don't do that. But Furios is like, fuck that. She steals the car. She goes out to find Dementis, and we see that there's only like 5 guys left in his entire horde. And so like Dementis realized that somebody's chasing them, so he tells them to basically split up. And so like Furiosa, and it was interesting to see like she sees that like there's, I think, one car, like a few cars going straight, and then like 2 motorcycles that have gone off to the right and to the left, and she has
Hmm.
to decide what to follow. So like she follows straight ahead because that's Dementis's chariot, but we see that he's not on it, so she
Yeah.
takes that guy out, and then um, she like goes up to like a mountaintop or something like that to like with a sniper rifle to see like which is which. And
Hmm.
like so she shoots one of the motorcycles, and like some scavengers that were there like find him and like take the body, and she sees that that's not the Mentis, so she
Hmm.
goes after the last guy. And so she follows him. I think she follows him into like, and we see that this is the Mentis on on a motorcycle trying to escape. And so she follows him to a sandstorm. Dementis wakes up, and like he's like covered, in from the sandstorm. And we see that um, he had like a supply of water, but
Hmm.
there was a hole, like the hole cut into it, so he has no water. The bike has been sabotaged too, so he can't use that. And he realizes that the person could have killed him in his sleep, but like
Yep.
no, this person wants to torture him,
Yep.
and like so
Yeah.
he tries to run away. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, no, 100%. Yeah, yeah. I was like, yeah. At this point in time, it's not about a quick death. It's just about like a slow, like make him feel it the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he tries to run away. Like she basically disables him, and then he realizes who she is. Like she's standing over because he's like, just kill me. Like who gives a shit? Like I don't care. But
Yeah.
he realizes who it is. He had called her a little D, basically little Dementis, when he had first captured her
Mhm.
and adopted her. So he realizes that's who she is, and he's like, "Oh, like we're one and the same." Because he had mentioned it's very much like the fucking Michael Myers thing was like it's in the eyes and like I see it in you
Mhm.
type of thing. So he just basically says we're one and the same. Like we're both like we'll do anything to survive. When we're fighters and stuff like that. And she gives another monologue saying, This is what took me out of the movie a bit."
Mhm.
When she goes, "My mother, my childhood, I want it back," and I'm just like,
Uh,
"What?"
yeah, no, yeah, a little bit.
So it's like the weirdest thing to like the request from like somebody that tortured you. It was like you want your
Mhm.
childhood and your mother. You know damn well you can't have either. What are we
Yeah.
doing? Like this is not as tough as you think it sounds.
Yeah, and
It
that was
seemed like a dumbass motivation to have, honestly.
yeah, and that was the thing with like, these two end monologues were like good and like from a performance perspective, but you're just like,
Yeah.
nah, it did. I agree on it kind of taking me out of it a little bit as well. But yeah.
And it's crazy because like that whole speech, her speech was in the trailer.
Hmm.
And it was just like, you really thought that was a motivation to have for this character?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That was weird. I didn't enjoy that part. But anyway, so she tortures him, um, and like he wants her to kill him, but like, then we don't know what happens basically, but we get an unreliable narrator. We don't know who the fuck this is. I can't remember if he was there the whole time
I
or
think it was supposed to be the historian. You know, I think it was the
yeah.
same voice as the
You're
wizard.
right, you're right. That's what I
Yeah.
thought too, but I couldn't remember
Hmm.
when he came in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he basically says that um, nobody knows how Furiosa took him out. Did she like just shoot him in the back of the head? Did she leave
Hmm.
him there for dead? But he says that Furiosa herself told him um, that she basically imprisoned him somewhere in the Citadel. So we see that uh, she, we see, excuse me, a very emaciated Dementus is like trapped in the place where Furiosa and Jack had met
Hmm.
secretly before they had left out for the last time. And there's a tree growing out of him, which
Hmm.
okay,
A
and it's like
peach
it's a
tree.
peach
Yeah.
because she had kept a seed that her mother had given her. So
Hmm.
basically, they're implying, or he's implying that she somehow fused the seed with him with Dementus so that the tree would grow out of him and
Yeah.
he'd be just trapped there, not able to leave.
It,
I don't know.
it's silly. Yeah, it's a little silly. It's
This
cool.
movie seemed like this ending seemed very anticlimactic for the build
Yeah.
up that it was.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so that's the end. That's the end of him. It was like we don't really know what happened, but it was like this is the inkling of what would possibly happen. And then like so she was
Hmm.
able to defeat Dementus, and then a few years later she helped the imprisoned wives escape
Hmm.
Morton Joe, which basically was like a nod to Fury Road. Um,
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
I
yeah, it
will
goes
say it was
right
like
into Fury
before,
Road.
yeah,
I was
yeah,
just saying, like, look, yeah, it's
yeah.
like it goes right through Fury
There
Road.
was I think a scene during the I think when they were escaping, her and Jack were escaping Bullet Town. I think there was a
Mhm.
scene that you did see Mad Max for like a
Yes.
brief second.
Yeah, it was
I
like
just
when she
wanted to
was
put
coming back all fucked up. When she was like coming back without her arm and everything, you see like
yeah.
Max are like looking down on her, and he's like, "I ain't
Yeah.
helping her." He's like, "That's not what I'm about."
I'm out eating two-headed lizards, baby. I ain't got time.
No, nope.
But yeah, so the end of this movie just leads into like her helping the wives escape from Fury Road, and like kind of that's the end of the movie.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, and that is the end of Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. We always like to go back and look at our original rankings. So, Mike, you gave this a 2.5 out of 5 when we started. Are you keeping it? Are you changing? What are you thinking?
I'm gonna boost it to a 3. I think I
Yeah.
really did enjoy like I said, this is why I enjoy having these conversations because usually my review is like what I thought when I first came out of the theater. But
Hmm.
I like talking with you and like having these conversations. I think I really didn't. I did enjoy. I don't think it's something I'll rewatch if I'm being honest. Like I'd
Okay.
rather go back and watch Fury Road.
Sure.
But for trying to as a standalone thing, I'm trying to give it that its merit as a standalone film. I think it was really good. The action set pieces were great. I think the performances were really good. I think the conclusion was a little lackluster for like the build up that
Mhm.
it was, right? But I think it was also it's a prequel, so like it's gonna suffer from it being a prequel.
Yeah.
Like you know what ends up happening, so like there's not too much shock and awe like you can really provide in a prequel, in my
Mhm.
opinion. But I think you're right. I was a little bit harsh on my 2.5. I think it was just a little bit of ire,
Sure.
but I did really enjoy it. Like I said, I think everything about this movie was great. It
Mhm.
just suffers from the fact that I don't think it's necessary. Like
Yeah.
as a story in this saga, but as a film on its own in a silo, it is really good. So I'm gonna boost it up to a 3.
Cool.
Um,
Love it. Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, I gave it a 4.5 or I gave it a 4 out of 5. I'm going to stick with a 4 out of 5. I don't think I'm going to boost it up to that 4.5. I do want to watch it again, and I will see potentially if my opinion changes. But I think everything I said from before stands. I think there's a lot of great things about this movie. Um, but yeah, I'm giving it a 4. I think, yeah, I think the best way to put it is the titular character Furiosa. I thought she was more fascinating and a stronger, better character in Fury Road than she was in her
mhm.
own movie a little bit. And like she is such Furiosa is a phenomenal character,
Mhm.
and I think like we got more of her in kind of like Fury Road versus others. But still, I like the
I
movie a
think
lot.
it's just a
So,
subtlety to character development
mhm.
um that's taken it gets taken away in a prequel or like a
Yeah,
true maybe like an origin story, you know what I'm saying? So
hmm
it's just like it's just like yeah, like I think her whole character was fleshed out in that whole movie.
yeah,
Like you know, like because she makes it back to the green place in that one, and like, you can see that desperate
mhm,
that full circle thing. But it was just like I said, I don't think this movie was really necessary because of the fact that I got everything I needed to know from that character from the
hmm
first movie. Right? It
yeah,
was such you didn't know shit about Mad Max in that movie,
yeah,
but you Furiosa's full story. So
hmm
it was weird that we needed this this 2 hour 2.5 hour movie to give you
yeah,
the backstory of the character that you kind of already had, but
yeah,
um. Anyway, yeah. Sorry, I
yeah.
didn't mean to interrupt.
No, not at all, but cool. But yep, thank you so much for listening, everyone. We are the Two Meddling Kids. You can find us at Two Meddling Kids on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, or you can email us at twomeddlingkids@gmail.com. Mike, how can they reach out to you?
On Instagram at Days from Legendary.
Love it. If you'd like to reach out to me, I am at EdHunt77 on Twitter and Instagram, Hunt.comics on Instagram and TikTok, and my website is edwardhuntwriting.com. But we will be back next week with a brand new movie. Catch you, everybody.
Bye.
Listen.